Very excited to be with you for the next 3 hours. We have a lot to talk about. Tennessee loses on the road against Kentucky last night. It was a game where the Vols had to rally in the second half. Rally they did. Take a lead for a brief period of time they did. And then Kentucky charged back from there. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk to you. What do you think after seeing last night's game? Looking ahead to the next few weeks, just a few weeks to go in the regular season before we get to the time that all of this is a build-up for, the NCAA tournament, the postseason. 865-656-9900 if you would like to be a part of today's show. VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here for the next 3 hours. I'm Josh Ward, and we'll talk to David Cobb of CBS Sports to see what he took out of the Kentucky game last night and what it means moving forward in this race of the SEC with Alabama and Auburn and Florida winning on the road last night. Maybe bumps the Gators up, could bump Tennessee back a spot or two, but the depth of the league is a big part of this conversation. So David Cobb of CBS Sports at 1:15, Braden Gall of 440 Sports at 2 o'clock. And again, we look forward to you joining us along the way. 865-656-9900. You'll also hear from Rick Barnes talking about what happened last night on today's show. Jason Swain, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm recovering.
Okay.
Josh. I could be better.
Yeah.
Just to be truthful, I could be better. Last night hurt me, man. It hurt me. It really did, man. So I'm recovered, man. A lot of ice today, a lot of pain medication, tussin, tea, soup, all the remedies. I got all of it going right now, man. I'm hurting.
You don't want to get swept by Kentucky. Yesterday, I think I said on the show, you can't get swept by Kentucky. Obviously, they could, and they did, at least for the regular season. Who knows? They might see each other again in the SEC and or NCAA tournament because Kentucky probably punched its ticket to a nice seed for the NCAA tournament last night. They've beaten a bunch of really good teams. They've gone through a tougher stretch here in the last few weeks, 2 wins against Tennessee included, but that's 0-2. Against Mark Pope's first Kentucky basketball team. And last night, Kentucky did not have Jackson Robinson. We knew that going in. And then Lamont Butler, who was back, was again out for the final 8 minutes roughly of the basketball game. But it was Kentucky who figured things out offensively in the final stretch. Tennessee could not.
That's the disappointing part, Josh, is Lamont Butler goes out with 8 minutes and some change to go. Jackson Robinson does not play. He's the one who torched you the first meeting. And you come up short. There's never an issue with the effort, but the execution was not there. And it's really hard to understand why it wasn't there. When you played this team once, when the team did to you last night what they did to you a couple weeks ago inside of your own building, I understand basketball and how sometimes shots don't fall. But defensively, there were lapses. I mean, we're missing open layups. We're not taking the ball to the rim tough in some cases. We allow two freshmen that barely play, that combine averages about 5 points per game, combine. And last night, they go for 19. 19 points. So you allowed basically some bench warmers to come in and impact the game. And that's the thing that's disheartening about last night. Chaz Lanier is a great dude. He's fun to watch when he's making shots. But you can't expect to win in big games when your best players don't play their best. And that was the case for Chaz Lanier against Kentucky. Hard to beat anyone when your best player is going 3 for 13, 0 for 7 from three. It's hard to beat anybody, Josh. Igor and Zakai, they produce. Igor, again, a really good game against Kentucky. Zakai did not follow up a poor performance versus Kentucky the first time with another one. He was awesome. He was awesome for us. He gave us a chance, man. He was aggressive. He was going downhill. He was finishing at the basket. How can a 5'9" player finish tougher at the basket than some of the 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guys that we have on our team? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And I love our basketball team. I love them. I love our players individually, collectively. I love our basketball program. But last night was disappointing, man. Last night was extremely disappointing. That doesn't mean that this team is going to be a first weekend, loser. This need to go in a different direction. It's not that serious, okay? I'm not to that level, won't be at that level after this one game. But you were playing so well offensively. And this team did to you again what they did to you before. And you let some bench warmers come in there and play better than some of your starters. Dude, Trent Noah, in 19 minutes, gave you more points than Chazanier in 31 minutes for Tennessee. Like, that can't happen. It just can't happen.
Yeah, Trent Noah and Travis Perry combined to shoot 5 for 7 behind the three-point line, while Chaz shot 0 for 7 behind the three-point line. Cannot happen. Chaz and Jordan Gainey combined 0 for 11 behind the three-point line. And despite that, Tennessee still had a shot late, but you're a couple of shots, legitimately a couple shots. I know in the end, the difference is 11 points. Part of that is free throw shooting at the end because Tennessee's having to foul on purpose. It is a close game until those final couple of minutes when it got away from Tennessee. A couple of shots from the team leaders, the seniors that you count on in the backcourt, could have made the difference. And I thought going in at the half, the three-point shooting difference with Tennessee only being down 7 was a really good sign. I think that turned out to be true because the Vols did rally, and they did come back and tie the game and then take a lead for a brief amount of time. But in the end, less experienced players for Kentucky, who were at home, that has to help. But they made the plays without a point guard to direct things, and the other players on Tennessee's side could not make those same plays.
Man, it's the attention to detail. For me, we're up 2 with a couple minutes to go in the game. You've rallied back. You've put yourself up 2. We have our best defender, the most versatile defender, guarding, the best shooter in the country, Kobe Brea. He's dribbling the basketball. The scouting report on him is that he's a catch-and-shoot player. He can shoot it off the dribble. He's the best shooter in the country. Why are we giving him that much space to dance on us and pull up? Force him, make him a driver. Make him a driver. Make him do something he's not comfortable doing. He's comfortable shooting shots from the perimeter. He's the best shooter in the country. He drills it in our face. We're down 1. And that was, for me, that was it. That was it. That was the kick in the place you don't want to be kicked. Like, you don't recover from that. And then Kobe Brea goes 50% from 3. And the misses were balls that rimmed out. Like, you don't want him shooting the basketball. He's the best shooter in the country. So it's just it's the lack of attention to detail in the crucial moments that really frustrated me last night. I mean, it really did. And again, I love our team. I love our guys on our team. But man, that was a bad loss. Like, losing on the road to Auburn, losing on the road to Florida. The way you lost is bad. But like, you lost to good teams that are right there with you on the same level as you. Kentucky should be on the same level as Tennessee this year, and they beat you twice. They beat you twice, man. In this game, with those important players being out, Lamont Butler averaging almost 13 points per game, and then you have Jackson Robinson. He's averaging 13 points per game. That's 26 points. And those guys didn't play the whole game. Lamont Butler didn't play the last 8. And you let other dudes come in there and bust your butt. That's the frustrating part, man. It's frustrating. It really is. And we know that the bench is tight. We know our roster is tight. We don't have the depth. We've established this weeks ago. So it puts more emphasis on the players who are out there. They got to pull their share. They have to do their load. Bench points. Kentucky, 26. Tennessee, 13. Tennessee loses by 11. 13-point difference in the bench points, and Tennessee loses by 11. Just saying, man.
What do you take out of what happened last night? How does it affect your feeling moving forward? Moving forward, it appears Tennessee will probably drop one line from a projected, and that's what it is right now, number 1 seed to a projected number 2. Vanderbilt at home is next on Saturday. We'll hear from Rick Barnes about what went wrong last night. How does that affect the conversation moving forward? We'll discuss coming up. 865-656-9900 to join us on Josh and Swain. Most recent text in the text box, Swain says Tennessee won't go far in the tournament if they can't put more than 2 good games or 2 halves together. That's probably true. The Tennessee defense should give Tennessee a chance, especially in the first weekend against just about anybody. But you do have to put points on the board, and there is a chance the other team can knock down shots, as Kentucky has done in both games against Tennessee. Now, Hub asked this question. I think the answer is easy to come up with, but he asked this question. Do you think Chaz Lanier is a bust at this level? He looks so lost on the court. I would say, of course, he's not a bust at this level. Has he not stepped up in certain games? That's also an obvious answer. No, he is not in certain games. Last night would be one of those. He was 0 for 7. But Swain, in SEC play, including last night's game, Chaz Lanier is scoring 14.9 points per game in their power conference games. So take away the weaklings that Tennessee played in non-conference. In power conference games, Chaz is averaging 17.4 points per game. You're not a bust. Not even close to a bust, if that's the case. But does it need to be better in some big situations? Of course, because last night would be one of the games where Tennessee didn't get enough from Chaz Lanier. He's affected by expectations. He's making a lot of money to come into play for Tennessee. That is just affecting the conversation. That's the reality. He also comes in the year after Dalton Connect did what he did a year ago. And at this point, trying to compare Chaz to Dalton Connect is just unfair. Dalton Connect was a top 20 pick in the NBA draft. He went too low, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of others. Chaz is not projected in that kind of position. So he gets compared to Dalton Connect. He's making money to come in, and that affects the conversation. But he is, right now, he's going to be an all-SEC player, right? You can't be a bust if you're an all-SEC player.
He's not a bust. But he is not doing what he was brought in to do consistently. He's not.
That's a key word there, the consistency.
Correct. He's not doing what he's supposed to do and what he's paid to do. He was paid and brought in, and listen, everybody's paid. So let's not make it seem like Chaz Lanier is the only one that's getting paid. He's just getting paid a lot of money. But a lot of guys on this team are getting paid. Everybody's getting paid. But he was brought in to show up in games like this, in big games, big moments where he is needed. No one needed him against Oklahoma. I mean, it was good that he had a good game. It was fun watching him drill shots, smile, get to the basket, finish around the rim. Like, that was fun watching him play. I enjoyed it. But it's these games that he needs to show up. That's what Dalton Connect did. He showed up in the game at home versus Auburn and took over. Like, that's why Chaz is brought in, because he has the ability to do that. And Rick continues to push him to be more aggressive. And they said it last night during the broadcast. Hey, Chaz, screen, get open. That helps you get open is go screen. That's what Jay Billis said. So that's the part that's frustrating when you look over at Kentucky's freshman bench warmer and he drops 11 and Chaz gives you 10 points in 10 more minutes than the Kentucky freshman. That's the thing that's frustrating. Let's say this. As frustrating as we can be as fans, like, no one's more frustrated than the players. No one's more frustrated probably than Chaz Lanier, because at the end of the day, he's put in thousands of hours to perform in that moment. And, like, no one tries to miss shots. Some of those shots rimmed out for Chaz Lanier. Like, he doesn't have a remote on the ball and he chooses to not make the shots. But when you're not making shots, you have to find other ways to put the ball in the basket, get to the free throw line, get to the basket, and we didn't do enough of that. And so that's the disappointing thing, I think, when you look at Chaz. But he's no bust at all, man. He's one of the best players in this conference, and this conference is the toughest it's ever been in the history of the conference. So want more from him, but he's no bust. Yep.
Another text, total bust 100%.
Huh?
Leading scorer in the top 5, top 10 team is not a bust.
Man. Like, if we're saying,
turn our brains on.
Yeah, like if we're saying he's a bust, like we need to define what bust actually means. Like, because I don't think we understand what a bust is. Because when I think about a bust, I think about a first round overall pick like a Jamarcus Russell going to, and I'm not trying to say this just because you're a Raiders fan, but him going to the Raiders and absolutely doing nothing. I mean, nothing.
He was a bust.
That
He
like
was a bust.
doing nothing is a bust,
Yeah.
or a 5-star player coming in on the football team and doing nothing. That's a bust. Chazanier is averaging 17 points per game. Chazanier is still the leading scorer for this basketball team in SEC play. Chazanier is still that dude. He is not a bust. Not a bust.
Correct.
His
Correct.
game last night was busted, but he's no bust.
Had a bad game last night. Like
Had a bad game.
there's no argument on that one.
Yeah. Come on, man. Like we gotta be. We have to be intentional and careful with our language. Like we need to be more careful with the words that we allow come out of our mouth. We need to treat our words like toothpaste. We get too comfortable throwing out these strong words. You don't just throw out the word bust when you're talking about an athlete. You got to be responsible. Like, you have to use it when it truly applies. Like the word soft. Bust,
Yep.
soft, words like that, man, you got to be careful. I ain't saying you don't ever use them, but make sure the shoe fits before you use them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, how you use them. Tennessee's offense busted last night.
Busted.
There can be games where the effort's not there. It can be a soft performance. But saying somebody is something, that a team is something, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, man. Like, if you call another dude soft in the locker room, that means you are ready to go to battle and prove that you're not. You're ready to throw hands. You're ready to have some type of physical altercation. It may be with pads. It may be without pads. But, like, there's certain words, man, like, you just got to be careful. And I think bust is one of those, which is why I'm always careful when describing a 5-star player coming in from high school. Because if I say it, like, I'm not taking it back. So I want to be very careful and very sure before I say it. I think that word should apply when we're talking about transfer players coming in too.
Yep. Florida, when Florida came to Knoxville, Florida, I thought on that afternoon was soft that day, did not live up to the physicality, did not match what Tennessee was bringing on the court. Offensively, Florida was atrocious that day. Florida is a great offensive team in college basketball this season. That day, they were as bad as it got in the country this year. And that was affected by Tennessee that day. Kentucky's offense was terrific last night. They did what they needed to do. Tennessee didn't bring it in the game, and Kentucky was able to play to its strengths with its outside shooting. Tennessee didn't match what Kentucky is last night. Over the course of the season, Tennessee has been the better team than Kentucky. We'll see if it plays out that way in the postseason.
Even when Chaz is not making shots, he is impacting the game because you are not helping off him, which gives Zakai Ziegler and other guys that are with the ball opportunities to drive the lane, having more space, because if you drive it to Chaz's side, that person off Chaz is not going to help. And when he is out of the game, we are played differently. If Chaz has a player that is sagging off of him and he's not making shots and we're not able to drive the lane because everyone's sagging in, okay, that's a different story. But he's still impacting the game when he's not making shots. That's how good Chaz is. That's the respect that he has commanded in this league. It will be easier for us. It will be great if he would make shots consistently and not go 0 for 7. But he's still the best player on our team, and our team, last time I checked, was ranked in the top 5 at least for a couple more days.
Right. Tennessee, beyond that, they're not going to drop out of the top 10 unless maybe they lose on Saturday. Tennessee needs to turn around, take care of business at home.
Yeah.
this weekend against Vanderbilt. We will continue the conversation. Hear from Rick Barnes coming up, and we want to hear from you. Call or text to share your opinions about what happened last night, what it means moving forward as we move forward on the show. 865-656-9900 to join us. VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here. I'm Josh Ward on Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here in a little less than 45 minutes. We'll see what David Cobb thinks coming out of last night and just where things stand. And we're almost halfway through February. We get here quickly, and then March is right around the corner. So we'll talk to David about where things stand in the SEC NCAA tournament race with just a few weeks to go. Swain, is this partly my fault? I told you yesterday while we were hanging out at Frazier's Carpet One that I thought Tennessee would win. I ended up being wrong there. How much am I to blame on this one?
That's not your fault.
Okay.
Not at all, man. You didn't miss shots. You didn't fail to guard the best shooter in college basketball tight, allowing him to shoot 50% from three. You didn't turn the ball over. You didn't miss blockouts. You didn't miss certain assignments. No, man. Not your fault at all, my friend.
Okay. You can watch on YouTube, by the way. We're on the 99.1 Sports Animal YouTube channel. Would love for you to subscribe to the channel when you stop by. So we're there. We're on 99.1 The Sports Animal on the radio dial, as well as AM 640, The Sports Monster. Hello to everybody tuning in the Tri-Cities. And Tennessee, despite the large difference in three-point shooting in the first half, only trailed by 7. Tennessee rallied there in the middle of the second half, had a shot late. It just didn't go Tennessee's way. It went Kentucky's way in the end. So what happened in that final roughly 4-minute stretch against Kentucky last night after the game? Rick Barnes answered that question. What happened late?
Way too many defensive breakdowns on our part. Give Kentucky credit. They did it, but we had way too many defensive breakdowns on things that you can't do there at the end of the game. And then I thought offensively we had a few guys that got too emotional, didn't make really good decisions on the offensive end, but I don't want to say anything to take away from Kentucky. Mark's done a great job with this group, and we were right where we needed to be, and didn't make enough winning plays on either end of the court.
A lot of frustration down the stretch. You alluded to it a little bit, but where did that frustration come from execution-wise?
You know, some of it is some of these guys haven't been in situations like this, a little bit of it, but by now, with as many games that we've played, I can't buy that, to be honest with you. I think it goes back to individual guys. We know our guys, and we know we got some guys that are pretty cool and calm. Some guys we know get a little bit too emotional and kind of zone out at the wrong times. I mean, I think every team I've coached, there's been different personalities like that, but it can't happen at that time. I can only tell you that. I mean, when you work hard enough to get yourself in position to win on the road against anybody in this league, the mental part of it, you've got to take care of it. And that's on both the offensive end and the defensive end. The breakdowns that we had in the last 10 points they scored were, it can't, I mean, they made a couple shots, but it was our execution really.
So Rick Barnes there. We'll hear from him a little bit later talking about Kentucky's 3-point success against Tennessee's defense and what kind of impact that had on the game, but some late defensive breakdowns. And he talked about the mental game, making sure that everybody's dialed in late in those critical situations.
Yeah, man. I mean, there are certain sports where emotionally, like you can be all over the place. You don't have to be as tight with maintaining your emotions. I think football is one of those games where on defense, that's why you see players hopping around after every play that's made, hitting their helmet. They're so juiced. You don't see that on offense. Like, you don't see offensive linemen after a nice run doing what the defensive linemen and what the defense players do. Like, you don't see that. It's because they have to have a different level of focus than defensive players. Not saying that you don't have to be focused. It's a different level of focus. Baseball, there's a different level of focus. You can't be too emotional when you at the plate trying to swing a bat and focus on the baseball. Like, you just can't, because you're not going to hit it if you're not locked in and focused. Well, basketball, there's a different level of focus. And when Rick Barnes talking about the emotional effects that we were going through and experiencing, and it affected our ability to execute late defensively, man. It ain't that you don't know what to do. It's doing them to the best of your abilities when your emotions are involved, when the crowd is against you, when the guy that you're guarding or guarding you is in your head a little bit. Like, are you still able to react in that very split second moment to make the right play, or are you a split second late making that play because you're thinking about a play that you didn't make before, or you're maybe not as confident that you're going to be in the right place at the right time? Like, that's why I love sports, man. That's why I love the X's and O's and like the mental part of it, because people don't understand, man. It's really 90% of the game is the mental discipline you got to have to respond after the other team makes a really good play, or be able to make the right play in crucial situations.
Yeah, we've referenced him several times in his story this week, but Jalen Hurts, he is the ultimate example recently of the mental game. He's played it close to perfection in terms of how he's handled everything, and that's why he's a Super Bowl champ.
Yep.
He has the physical talent, but the mental toughness he showed in facing adversity, you're going to face it in the middle of a season in basketball for sure. It's going to be ups and downs. Rick Barnes will talk about that this afternoon, but Tennessee did not handle things well on the road, which, by the way, is common in college basketball, but that doesn't take away from the frustration if you're a Tennessee fan or inside the building there with Tennessee basketball. We'll continue the conversation. Text box is open. A few messages coming in there. Same number to call or text if you would like to join us and share your thoughts at 865-656-9900 as we continue on Josh and Swain. I'm Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. Our final segment of hour number one. More than 2 hours to go. We're with you until 3 o'clock on 99.1 The Sports Animal and AM 640 The Sports Monster. Appreciate you. If you're streaming out there, you can also listen to us on demand each and every day. Just search Josh and Swain wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen on demand thanks to Beatty Chevrolet. Tina in the text box asked why Igor was on the bench during a stretch there in the second half. And I tell you what, Joel, if we can hear Rick Barnes talk about Igor, who he caught fire for a stretch there. He hit 3 threes while Tennessee was struggling to shoot from the outside. That did not apply to Igor Milicic. He was 3 of 4 from behind the three-point line. His teammates were 0 for 14. Igor had 16 points and 9 rebounds in the game. But, yeah, that was a question there in the second half with him sitting for a stretch. The question was actually about Igor becoming more comfortable in the offense, but this is what Rick Barnes said about Igor Milicic following the loss to Kentucky last night.
Well, again, I think he should be comfortable, but again, I think he's got to still slow down when he starts playing at it by himself. There, we don't know what he's doing sometimes, and he's a guy that we need to be the most consistent guy on the court, both offensively and deep. We need him to be consistent, where what we can count on every single night, and I think. Again, he's going to get better. You know, we're down to 7 or 8 games, and then we postseason. So there's a lot of time to improve, and we need every one of our guys on our team to get better. Thank you.
Rick Barnes talking about Igor Milicic Jr. and his teammates as well after the game last night, Swain. 6 games to go, by the way, for Tennessee. Vanderbilt's next on Saturday, then Texas A&M, LSU, Bama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina.
Yeah, that first part was funny, man. Rick Barnes. Yeah, we don't know what not ego, but Igor out there doing, man, sometimes. he just doing his own thing, man. We don't know. I'm sorry, man. That was funny to me. That really was. But, hey, Igor's balling. Igor wasn't backing down, and you look at the last 2 games versus Kentucky, who has been the best player for Tennessee, it's been Igor. When you look at the production in the stat book, I know there's a lot of things that don't show up in the stat sheet, and Rick has his own stat sheet of I guess landmarks that he wants his players to hit during the game, whether it's deflections or times on the floor, whatever it may be. Like what we see Igor balling, and that's someone who just got here a couple months ago, and he was doing a better job than some of the guys that have been here 3 or 4 years. So, but that was hilarious hearing Rick say that sometimes, man, Igor just out there doing his own thing. But hey, I think he was looking around going, man, hey, is anybody else gonna do something? I mean,
probably part of it, right?
Yeah, well, Chaz, you gonna make some shots? Jordan Gainey, what's up, man? Y'all gonna make some shots? Y'all gonna do something? All right, forget it. Y'all ain't gonna do it, then I need to go do it. Like, I understand that. I understand that mentality.
Yeah, they came out of the half. He hit one early in the second half, his first one. And part of his thinking may be, hey, that team's taking and making a lot of threes. We haven't made one. Somebody's going to have to make a 3 here. And he did. Again, he made all 3 of Tennessee's threes. They didn't even shoot half as many threes. Talking about the Vols as they did 2 weeks prior against Kentucky, but the percentage was still way down. 3 of 18, while Kentucky once again hit a high percentage, again going 50% behind the 3-point line. Even still, Tennessee was in it. So Tennessee actually had the free throw advantage in the game. They did so with Kentucky hitting the freebies at the end when Tennessee's fouling on purpose. So Tennessee had been able to make up the difference. There was just too much of it in the end because the Vols, they didn't have enough guys making plays. You had Zakai and Igor. They scored 33 of Tennessee's 64 points.
Like sometimes you got to have balance, right? When you decide to kind of draw outside the lines, like you can't go too far to one side. Like you still have to operate somewhat in the framework of the system, but there are times when you got to take matters in your own hands. You got to be accountable and say, "Hey, man, if I don't do something, then we're not going to win." And Like I give you a story on the other side of the break. We have some time, but like there's a guy I played with that did not do everything that he was coached to do, but no one complained when he was out there making plays and Tennessee was winning.
We will talk about that when we come back. We have 2 more hours to go. We'll get back to Tennessee when we return to start up hour number 2. We continue to invite you to join us. You can call or text to be a part of the show at 865-656-9900. We'll open it up for you as we continue. David Kopp of CBS Sports will join us at 1:15, so we'll get his reaction as well. Nick with a couple of texts to close out this hour. Nick in Nashville says maybe Rick should focus the offense on Igor because we don't have many other people scoring consistently. Maybe.
They ran an awesome play for
The
Igor.
consistent thing about this team is that they are inconsistent. I think that also applies to a lot of teams in college basketball, especially if you have a home versus away conversation. But again, the shooting inconsistency pops up. It did so again last night in Rupp Arena for Tennessee. We'll come back. We'll return to Tennessee's conversation next, 865-656-9900. If you would like to join us, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here. I'm Josh Ward on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. David Kopp of CBS Sports will join us to talk college hoops at 1:15. You can join us throughout the show, 865-656-9900. Swain, I want to get back to story time, going back to your time at Tennessee. We have news in college football, though, that I do want to share before we get back to that. As Pete Thamel of ESPN reports that Ohio State, which has to replace its defensive coordinator, they're actually replacing both coordinators. Chip Kelly has gone to the top franchise in the NFL. He's now with the Raiders. But with their defensive coordinator going to Penn State, Ohio State is hiring Matt Patricia to be its defensive coordinator. He is the former defensive coordinator with the New England Patriots and head coach of the Detroit Lions. He will now be the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. So we saw Ohio State last year hire a head coach for its OC position. Chip Kelly from the college ranks now hiring a former NFL head coach to be its defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia.
Man, that's not even fair. It seems like Ohio State is, playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers right now. Brian Hartline, the receiver coach, is going to be the offense coordinator, going to call plays. He did that before Chip Kelly became the offense coordinator. So that's something that he's used to doing. I know the receivers there at Ohio State should be really happy about that, just like the tight ends were happy when Alex Golesh was offense coordinating here at Tennessee in 22. So the rich get richer, man. I mean, that's a game changer. That's like a Joker card when you're playing spades. Throw out the Matt Patricia card.
Yep. So little news there in the Big Ten. I would like to boldly predict that Brian Hartline will dial up some plays for Jeremiah Smith in 2024.
Yeah, sounds like a smart thing to do. He's still wanting to be a head coach. He's interviewing for head coaching jobs. This might be the time that he gets his head coaching job. Just throw it to Jeremiah Smith. Makes him look like a really good head coach.
Yep. He'll get Jeremiah the football, and Jeremiah might get him a head coaching job. That could be a deal that works on both sides. So we were talking about players maybe doing their own things. Did you have story time for us or an example to share with us of sometimes guys able to make some plays? So if he's doing his own thing, it's still worth having him out there.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, Rick Barnes was talking about, Igor last night, kind of doing his own thing at times. And I know he wanted to win. And there were some other guys that wasn't playing well, wasn't making shots. So I know he probably took it upon himself to go out there and make more plays for his team to win. Maybe it was just a little bit outside the framework of what Rick Barnes and the system wants him to do. But I think about a teammate of mine who was a wide receiver, James Banks, and I would sit in meetings. I would listen to what we were told to do and how to run certain routes, certain depths and distances, and how to do things. And I saw James not do those things in the game. And balls were still coming his way. He's still making plays. There was one time that he was lining up. It was on the road against Alabama in 2003. He was lining up and actually was off balance before the snap of the football and fell. Like, he was leaning and fell. I don't know how he didn't get a false start, but fell. Like, he was leaning and fell on the snap of the football. Josh, he got up and ran some route. Some route, don't know what route was.
Route was run.
In case he still threw it to him. Still threw it to him. I got another example. Not James Banks, but we heard about the Cordell Patterson story in 2012 in the opener versus NC State. How he left the huddle, did not know what the play was. Tyler Bray told him just run straight. And Tyler Bray threw the ball for him for a touchdown. I mean, sometimes, hey, you just got to improvise and just do your own thing. And those are examples of it working. So, James had a big year, 2003, had the halftime Hail Mary catch against Florida, had a really good year. But he didn't always do it by the book. But he still made plays.
If you're not going to do everything by the book, you better back it up by making plays. Igor Milicic is a guy that at different times of the season he's had his own shooting slump, but he can be a playmaker within this offense. There's a lot that he can do. His presence, his spacing can have an effect, a positive effect on what Tennessee's offense is capable of doing, in addition to Milicic's ability to knock down shots and make plays with the basketball.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's fun watching him play. I know there was a comment made before we went to break about, running the offense through him. I mean, he's a stretch four, and he's had plenty of opportunities to make plays. I mean, he is not like Grant Williams and how Grant Williams was used here at Tennessee, where we did throw the ball inside and did run the offense more through him. And I remember last night, man, there was a beautiful play called for him where you had Jamal Meshack coming off the curl screen, came back and screened Igor's man to slip him out for a three, and Igor got a wide open 3-point shot. Like, that was a beautiful play design, and that was made for Igor. Like, that was designed for Igor. So, I mean, when a player is feeling it and he's making shots and he's in the zone, you got to keep feeding the hot hand. You got to go back to that player. And Rick Barnes and his staff did that with Igor, and it resulted in 3 plays, just 3 points. We didn't get more of that from other guys. But listen, Igor only shot 9 shots last night. You can make a case that he should have shot the ball more. He was 6 for 9, 3 for 4 from 3, and Jordan Gainey shot 12 shots. We can make an argument that Igor should have shot the ball more and taken some of Gainey's shots last night and Chaz's shots last night.
A strong argument. Yeah, Igor shot.
Strong.
He shot 9 times and scored 16 points.
Yep.
Chaz shot 13 times and scored 10.
Yep.
Gainey shot 12 times and scored 8. One was much more efficient than the others.
Yeah, very much so. But you got to get,
some more help
from
and
your
Zakai
bench.
too. He took 11 shots, scored 17 points.
Yeah, you got to get more help from your bench, man. Your bench, I mean, was, 5 for 16? I mean, Kay Phillips was the best player off the bench for Tennessee last night. I mean, he got you 5 points, but, man, he blocked some shots or altered some shots. I don't know why I don't show a block here on the stat sheet, because I saw the block with my own 2 eyes. He had a block, was rebounding, was a presence around the rim. He was the best bench player for us last night.
Yeah, only 2 registered shots, made one of them. That was a big play that he made. There's no question Cade is going to bring it from an energy standpoint, and that's often going to lead to some kind of help, and that'll show up in the box score, rebounds, plays that he can make. But Cade off the bench, I think, is as consistent as Tennessee has out of anything, not counting really Zakai. But coming off the bench for sure, Cade's energy that he's going to bring, not playing as many minutes, I recognize that, but he brings it every time.
Yeah, he does. And again, it's not an effort thing with us. So when we mention Cade and his effort, that doesn't mean that other bench guys did not have the effort. It's just that Cade was more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Darlington only played 4 minutes, and the reason why is because he came in and missed a dunk, and just had a turnover. Just, it wasn't his night, and the leash for him is short. He's not doing something that is allowing him to get more minutes and more opportunities. And so it starts at practice, and obviously he's not doing something right.
Hey, I want to address something before this segment ends. David Cobb's going to join us in the next segment. Richard commented on it in the YouTube chat, had a couple of texts about it, and that is in the Bama-Texas game last night. Bama put up 103 points. I think that's their 7th game with 100-plus this season. Anyway, so did you catch this? Carl Ravitch noted in the SEC to show how difficult play is and how good everybody is, that everybody in the league, the conference record is 82-82 since conference play began. This has happened a couple of times. There was this troll post a few weeks ago on social media. It got Archie Miller, who's now at Rhode Island. He said, everybody talks about the SEC. They're 54-54 since conference play began. Yes, they're 500 because they're playing each other. Every time there's a win, there's a loss. That's how the math works out. But people keep getting got, and it got Carl Ravitch. I'm a Carl Ravitch fan, but it got him last night where for some reason he couldn't understand that the reason they're 82-82 is because they're playing each other. If you win, the other side has to lose, and vice versa. Don't let anybody get you with that stat. If you, oh man, the SEC, they're just 500 since conference play began, and they will finish 500 when conference play ends. We will come back. David Cobb of CBS Sports will join us. What does he think about the top of the SEC, where Tennessee is in the mix with Alabama and Auburn and Florida and Kentucky with the big win last night, Texas A&M, Ole Miss? We could keep going. We'll do so when we come back. David Cobb of CBS joins us right here on Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us as we continue On this Wednesday afternoon, alongside VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain, I am Josh Ward, and we are excited to welcome to the show David Cobb, who covers college basketball, college football as well for CBSSports.com. David, we appreciate the time as always. We could have you on at any time. Could be after a win, could be after a loss with how things are in the SEC this year with the depth of the conference, which we can get to. Today happens to be after Tennessee lost at Kentucky last night. The Vols had a 3-game winning streak before that and had looked really impressive leading up to last night. So what do you make of all of that? What Tennessee has done to this point, went 0-2 against Kentucky, but where that leaves maybe Tennessee going into the final 3 weeks of regular season play?
Yeah, I guess Kentucky kind of cracked the code on Rick Barnes' defense. The only team this season to shoot 50% from the floor against Tennessee, and they've done it twice, shooting an identical 12 of 24 from three in both games. Yeah, it's surprising, like the holes that you're seeing from time to time in the Tennessee defense. Concerning from the standpoint of they don't have the elite sort of scoring option to always counter that like they did last season when you had Dalton Connect. Because Charles Lanier, for as wonderful of an outside shooter as he is, he's just not quite that dynamic 3-level scorer that DK was. And so, no, it's not fair to boil this entire season down to Dalton Connect versus Chaz Lanier. That's woefully unfair. But if you want a snapshot of where things are and why this team isn't maybe quite as high on the ceiling as last year's, I think that sort of explains it.
How do you compare Tennessee to what you've seen at the top of the league? Alabama, Auburn. Tennessee still has a game against Alabama to go, but we've seen Tennessee against Florida twice, at Auburn, which was close, down the stretch. And then anybody else you want to throw into that conversation among the top teams in the SEC?
Yeah, I got to see Auburn in person last night in Nashville, and they started out on a 15-0 run against Vanderbilt. Like, boy, you don't think Bruce Pearl got after his guys after they took a home loss to Florida? I think he did. Now, to Vanderbilt's credit, they clawed back and actually took the lead in the second half. But Auburn and Alabama, we are headed towards an Iron Bowl on the hardwood of just absolutely massive proportions on Saturday because it's crazy. Auburn is number one in the AP poll, but Alabama is number one in the coaches poll, and they're going to be playing on Saturday, and the winner will, I think, indisputably be number one in every poll come Monday. So those two are on a tier above the rest of the conference, and Florida is not all that far behind them. They're just a bit more inconsistent. We saw them come into Thompson Food City Center, and take a 20-point loss. So I don't think Alabama or Auburn, even on their worst day, are capable of playing that poorly. And then Tennessee is kind of right there with Florida. But yeah, it's just the offensive consistency is what's holding Tennessee back. And then you run into a team like Kentucky that cracks your code defensively. I don't think that's going to happen a ton, but we've seen it happen enough now to where if I were power ranking the SEC, I think at the moment I'd have Tennessee either 4 or maybe 5 behind Texas A&M, which is a team that's playing really, really well right now.
Tennessee was listed as a 1 seed last week. Do you think Tennessee can still grab that number 1 seed, or do you think last night hurt Tennessee's chances no matter what they do for the rest of the regular season?
No, I think they could still do it, Swain. As of this moment, our Jerry Palm did knock Tennessee down to a 2 and move Florida up to a 1. But you look down the stretch, you do still have Alabama. You get Texas A&M. There are 2 pretty solid quad 1 opportunities there. You take care of business in one of those 2 and win all the rest going into the SEC tournament, you can be back there on that 1 seed line. In that SEC tournament, it's just going to be insane. Even on day 1, you're going to have 3 or 4 bubble teams duking it out, just trying to get into the field of 68. And then as the tournament progresses, the battle for number 1 seeds is going to be high theater. Now, we know the championship game, based on history, actually does not, it appears, have a large impact on what happens with the final seedings, because what was it, a couple of years ago, Tennessee won the SEC tournament, probably should have bumped them up, and it didn't happen, right? So, the impact of that tournament will be limited come Sunday, but Wednesday through Saturday, I think you're going to see a lot of it get sorted out in terms of where these teams fall on the NCAA tournament seed line.
David Cobb, CBSSports.com, is with us. Where do things stand in terms of how many SEC teams you think would be in right now? How many could be in? Maybe how many you think will be in here in, 4 weeks or so?
Well, there's 14 in the mix. I mean, LSU and South Carolina are your only two that are done. I mean, they'd have to do something absolutely miraculous. Now, the other 14 still have a chance, and Arkansas is the one who's crept into that conversation now. The ones you're looking at is kind of teetering on the brink would be Texas and Georgia, along with Arkansas right now. And then we still got to see a little bit more from Oklahoma, which is really kind of struggling right now. But yeah, I would say 12 is probably where it ends up, just because whatever loss you take in this conference, it really doesn't penalize you. So you're going to go into the SEC tournament kind of in the same situation you are now in all likelihood. You're probably going to have 13 or 14 that have a chance. And then, you'll probably lose one along the way. One of these teams is going to lose on the first day in Nashville, and it's going to cost them a spot in the field. I firmly believe that's going to happen. So the bubble is very SEC heavy right now. In a bad scenario, if things went really poorly for the league, I mean, worst case 10, and that's worst case. So even in the worst case scenario, it's still a historically good season.
Over under on the amount of teams from the SEC in the Final Four at 2.
Ooh, I'm actually take the under. I gotta see some more March performance from the league. That's the thing. The pressure is going to be on. If the SEC ends up with 3 number 1 seeds, it's possible the SEC could end up with 4 number 1 seeds, which would be insane. Boy, the pressure's on at that point, right? Because you got to produce if you produce that many highly seeded teams. So, I mean, as we all know, the tournament is so crazy that let's say, of the 68 who make it, probably 30 are legitimately good enough to make a run. If 10 of those 30 or 8 of those 30 are from the SEC, yeah, odds are you get under 2. But as so long as you get 1, you have to get at least 1 in the NCAA tournament, or else you're just going to be the butt of every joke in late March and early April, and people will ignore the fact that it was a historically dominant regular season. That's just the way it is in college basketball. It's all about March.
Yeah, well, SEC did take a lump during football season, so got to recover in basketball season.
Make up for it in basketball and baseball season, right?
Yeah.
yeah. It's a basketball league now. It's a baseball conference. But no, that's true. I mean, the SEC did not have a fantastic showing in the college football playoff. They've got a chance to make up for it in basketball here, but it's interesting. The other question, the other way to sort of phrase the same concept is when it comes to who's going to win the national championship. Are you taking the SEC or are you taking the field? That's a tough one. Like when you really break it down, if you look and say, hey, there's 10 teams that have the ability to win the national championship this year, you got to think at least 4 or 5 of them are from the SEC. So, it's conference bragging rights are going to be on display in this NCAA tournament, no doubt.
David Cobb, CBS Sports. What interests you the most right now looking outside the SEC? Is it what Duke can do the rest of the way? St. John's has been one of the top stories with that program kind of being back, and then Rick Pitino, of course, leading. They have a game tonight against Villanova, which I think is interesting. But what's standing out to you, that or otherwise, outside the SEC right now?
Well, Duke is legit. They took a loss at Clemson over the weekend, but that's a fun team. Cooper Flagg is the real deal, and they've got the pieces around him to be a threat. So what would be so fascinating if Duke is able to piece this thing together and get to the national title game is the idea that they're doing it relying not exclusively, but very heavily on freshmen, where the last decade it's been shown that's not really the recipe for success anymore. But if John Shire is able to get that done with Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple and a really strong freshman class leading the way, boy, all of a sudden we've turned back the clock to 2013, 2014, Coach K's heyday and Cal's great teams at Kentucky. Because that's not really been the way it's gone in college basketball for most of the last decade. But John Shire has kept a laser-focused approach on that formula, bringing in the high-dollar, big-time 5-star guys, and he's got a shot to make it work and sort of turn back the clock.
Vandy fans really chant overrated at Janai Broome last night?
They did, Josh. I didn't think that was a good idea. They did it. And I think if you go back and look from about the time they did that early in the first half, to the end of the game. Auburn outscored Vanderbilt by double digits from that point forward. The crazy thing though about it was that, yeah, I mean, Janai Broome had his classic 17-8 or whatever he ended up with, but he wasn't even their best player, and that's what's so special about Auburn is like they don't have to force feed Janai Broome and have him be at his best to be a really good team. There are 6th and 7th guys going off for 20 points on that Auburn team. And they're beating a quality SEC opponent on the road by double digits. That's what's scary about Auburn. It's like, sure, Broome's awesome, and when he's on, they're unbeatable, but they're still really good even when he's not.
Yep, Auburn Bama, the first of 2 matchups this season. This weekend, huge game, 1 versus 1 with the 2 polls this weekend. David, before you go, Tennessee will host Vanderbilt. Vandy beat Tennessee in Nashville. Did you cover that game? Were you there in person? But what do you think about that matchup as they'll play in Knoxville this Saturday, the rematch between Tennessee and Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I was there the first time around, and it came down to free throws, and Chaz Lanier, the Nashville kid, obviously missed one, and that was tough for Tennessee. Huge for Vandy. That one basically put them on the bubble. It legitimized Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's gone on to beat Kentucky and looks like a potential NCAA tournament team. I mean, Mark Byington's done an incredible job there, and I profiled kind of what he's done at CBS Sports yesterday. But you got to think, Rick Barnes, the track record this season has been that after a loss, I mean, you kind of get the best effort from Tennessee. So I think it's a horrible spot for Vandy going into Knoxville with what should be an angry Tennessee team on its home floor. Tennessee is up and down, but still, I mean, absolutely a top 10 caliber team. And so when you look at Vandy, if you're able to contain Jason Edwards, he's kind of their electric little scoring guard, a jitterbug type who can beat most guys off the dribble, then you're in good shape. The first time around, they didn't do that particularly well. But if you can kind of eliminate him and make him uncomfortable with Jemai Mashak or Zakai Ziegler, things break down. And then the other thing, too, which Tennessee typically does a good job of, if you take care of the basketball against Vanderbilt and make them play half-court offense and eliminate their ability to get out in transition, scoring for them can be tough, especially if you're locking down Edwards. So I think Tennessee's got a pretty good shot to get some redemption in that game.
David Cobb, he is part of the coverage at CBSSports.com. They put as much energy and resources into covering college hoops as anyone out there. You can read his work, CBSSports.com. David, we appreciate the time as always. Always great to have you on the show, and hopefully we talk to you again here soon.
For sure. Good to see you guys.
Thank you, David. David Cobb joining us to talk college basketball with Tennessee coming off the loss last night, getting ready for an important game at home against Vanderbilt on Saturday. We'll come back and continue the conversation, inviting you to be a part of it. 865-656-9900. We are halfway home. VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here. I'm Josh Ward. We continue on Josh and Swain. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward. We have Joel Silverberg producing for us today. Enjoyed talking some college basketball, a lot of SEC and Tennessee basketball with David Cobb of CBS Sports. Last segment, we will talk to Braden Gall of 440 Sports coming up at 2 o'clock. We have some NCAA-related updates that we'll get to here in a moment as well. 865-656-9900 to join us as Swain with the conversation of Tennessee coming off the loss last night. A little perspective from Mason in Chattanooga texting in saying, stinks to lose to your basketball rival Kentucky, but it's a top 15 loss on the road on a Tuesday night. Really hurts a little more than morale. Now, Tennessee appears to be dropping a seed line, but going from 1 to maybe the top 2 seed, still a fairly minimal effect there. We'll see what happens the rest of the way. But notes tournament games are played on the weekends with no travel on a neutral floor. So a little perspective. You don't want to lose your rival, and nobody's saying last night was good, but there's some perspective maybe to keep with how that affects Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta keep it in perspective, but at the same time, like, you keep this in your back pocket, like the game, because if you run across a team like this in a tournament and you've already shown that you failed to make the adjustment the first time Kentucky beat you, going 12 for 4, 24 from 3. Okay, the first time, shame on you, right? Second time, well, you just can't do it again. You just can't let it happen again, right? Right, Josh? And so Tennessee,
right up there with my favorite quotes. Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, Tennessee just allowed it to happen again. And the first time, like, you give them a pass because number 1 defense in the country, number 1 versus a 3. But then when it happened again, it's like, oh, well, maybe we didn't learn our lesson. So if you play a team like Kentucky in a tournament, I mean, it's not crazy to think that Tennessee may go home, whether that's in the first round, second round, third round, whatever, because they've shown you twice already that we haven't been able to defend a 3-point shooting team like a Kentucky. Now, there's only one Kentucky. You may not play those guys in a tournament. You may.
That's the fear, probably, right? That, okay, it's not necessarily about is Tennessee going to be a 1 or a 2 seed, or where does it affect Tennessee in the SEC standings? When we point out, or if I say, hey, remember, there's still a 6-game stretch in the regular season. You have the SEC tournament, then the NCAA tournament. You still have time, and the more important games are coming up later. The response can be, yeah, that is one and done. You lose in the NCAA tournament. There is no, well, let's see what happens next. That's it. You let what happened last night happen in March. That's what ends your season, and that's where the fear or the troubling thoughts can set in, and that part is true. They can't let a team in the NCAA tournament go 12 of 24 from 3 and expect to win the game.
I can promise you this: every fan is going to think about the team's losses during the season, and when it's tournament time, and say, "Man, I hope we don't face a team that can do that." Like Tennessee, okay, we got 5 losses, right? 1 to Vanderbilt, 2 to Kentucky, 1 to Auburn, 1 to Florida. Man, I hope we don't play a team like Vanderbilt in the tournament because, we lost to a team like Vanderbilt. So, like, everyone's doing that, right? Mm-hmm. And remember last year when, we lost games and we said, man, I hope we don't play a team that, like South Carolina, because we lost to South Carolina at home. Well, we didn't. We played Zach Edey, the most dominant big man we've seen in the last 20 years in the NCAA. So you just never know what might happen when the tournament comes around. But it's okay feeling that way right now because it's fresh. It just happened last night.
Yeah, we'll see where some of the updates are with where teams stand, but it'll still move around. The NCAA net ranking after last night saw Tennessee drop a spot. So Tennessee is now 5th in the NCAA net ranking. So still top 5, but that would line up with the talk right now that Tennessee would drop to a 2 seed from where Tennessee had been projected as a 1 seed. Right now, the top 4 in the NCAA net ranking, Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida, and then Tennessee is ahead of Alabama, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Purdue, which lost last night to Michigan, and Arizona, which lost last night to Kansas State. So if you look in the top 10 of the current NCAA net rankings, Arizona, Purdue, Tennessee all lost last night, and a bunch of those teams have lost in the last week or week and a half. Auburn and Alabama will play a huge game coming up this weekend, this Saturday.
Oh, man. Mess around and find out, because Tennessee, lose game here and there. Some cases, not drop a spot at all. Other cases, drop only one spot.
Yeah. The better thing would have been to win last night and further solidify positioning for a number one seed. So I also recognize there's the flip side when you say, well, a loss doesn't hurt you too much. A win could have really helped. Winning at Kentucky, that would have been a big deal last night. But
big deal.
you missed on that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, messed that up, man. Messed that up, man. And Chris Lofton was there.
I hadn't brought that up yet.
What are we doing? What are we doing? You can't lose like that in front of Chris Lofton. Can this basketball program act like they got some love and respect for Chris Lofton? Because lately, y'all act like y'all don't like Chris Lofton. Y'all act like y'all don't appreciate Chris Lofton. Because every time it's a big game and Chris Lofton's in the house, we lose. We lose in front of Chris Lofton. Like, you owe him an apology. Playing like that in front of Chris Lofton.
3 of 18 from 3 in front of Chris Lofton.
This is
Tennessee's all-time 3-point leader. Come on now.
That's like when your parents come up to the school and you decide you want to misbehave in front of your parents while they at the school. That's the wrong time to misbehave. You don't misbehave when your parents come to your school. You misbehave when they're not there. It's the wrong time to not shoot the ball well and lose to Kentucky. Is when Chris Lofton is in the building. You play your best. You shoot your best. You don't let the other team outshoot you. And don't forget, we lost to Chris Lofton. Lost to Kentucky when Chris Lofton got his number retired at home.
Yeah, Chris Lofton Day. Yeah. You're never going to let everyone forget that one.
No, never.
That was the day you actually, I think you're somewhat joking in this segment about last night, but that day you really did call for handwritten apology notes.
I was dead serious. Yeah, I'm dead serious. Yeah. A player get their number retired, man. You can't go out there and lay an egg. You gotta come out and win that game and play with your hair on fire. We didn't do that day. So I'm serious. That team owes Chris Lofton individual handwritten letters apologizing.
How do you address that? Is it Mr. Lofton, dear Chris? How do you?
Mr. Lofton, sir.
Dear Mr. Lofton, comma.
Yeah.
Sir, I would like to personally apologize.
Correct. Yeah.
For our poor performance, effort, and overall letdown on your special day.
Correct. Yep. Handwritten letter. Last night, you could just text him. Just text him, man. My bad, man. I'm sorry. Last night was just a text.
Yeah.
But the jersey retirement, that's a handwritten letter. Yeah. In cursive.
Letter
in cursive. Yeah. We gotta write fancy and make sure we can read it.
Don't smudge. Exactly. We'll come back. 865-656-9900. Swain, once again, we're looking at another Tennessee versus the NCAA battle. We will update you there when we come back. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver, on Josh and Swain. Alberto Asuna Sanchez. He is a newcomer, spent the last 3 years at North Carolina. He spent his first year in college at Walter State, was the National Player of the Year, had a monster season, but you might be familiar with Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia's case, where he is a winner to this point, so he has been granted another year of eligibility, it appears, because of his win in court, and he argued that his junior college time should not count against his eligibility. That's why Alberto transferred to Tennessee. The season begins on Friday, so he has filed a suit claiming that his JUCO years should not be counted, and has pointed to the Diego Pavia case. He filed a temporary restraining order to stop the NCAA from preventing him from playing Division I college baseball in the spring of 2025 based on his prior participation on a junior college baseball team. So we'll see what happens. Right now, that's kind of hanging out there. My guess is that this will work itself out and that he will play baseball for Tennessee. He can mash. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. But here is your latest Tennessee versus the NCAA case. I will tell you up front, this was my opinion before we got to Alberto's story. I don't really agree with the ruling in favor of Diego Pavia. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for Miles Kitselman that he gets another year of eligibility. And I guess on behalf of Alberto, I hope for him that it works out. And for Tennessee, obviously, it would be good news to be able to add him to the lineup. I don't really agree with this ruling. I think those junior college years should count. But the Diego Pavia case tells me that Alberto should be able to play as well. We'll see if that's the way that it is. My guess is that's the way that it's going to work out, but that's kind of the latest. He filed suit against the NCAA today.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this two different ways here, Josh. I mean, if you are a player coming out of high school and you don't have the grades and you have to go to JUCO because you failed to get the necessary grades and put in the hard work, then I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand and try to get you extra years of eligibility when you didn't take care of business when you're supposed to. But I think about a story with Jonathan Johnson, who played receiver here at Tennessee, early Butch Jones years. And I remember talking to him about how he ended up in JUCO because he was an excellent student, but he didn't have the offers coming out of high school that he thought he would have. And so he had to go to JUCO to prove that he could play at that level. And then Tennessee came down when they tried to recruit Camille Jackson, the Oklahoma transfer, and they saw Jonathan Johnson and saw that because he was so far ahead academically, he could join Tennessee right then that spring. And that's why he joined Tennessee. So I would hate to punish Jonathan Johnson for being in JUCO when it wasn't academically. But on the other hand, you have other guys that go to JUCO because they just didn't take the classwork seriously. Let's not reward them for that. So I'm with you, man. Like I'm happy for the players who are able to play and maximize their college eligibility, but there has to be some type of accountability.
But if you're a Tennessee fan here, I would think that you are pulling very hard for Alberto. And this
Alberto!
Again, it comes back to affect the conversation of high schoolers out, guys coming out or athletes coming out of high school, because it would affect men's and women's sports. But athletes coming out of high school, this takes a spot away. I mean, it just does in some form or fashion. So I don't want that to be lost. If we talk about extending eligibility for athletes that are 22, 23, 24 years old, that is affecting opportunities for 18-year-olds coming out of high school jumping into college.
Yeah, that's the downside, man. I mean,
give one, you have to take one.
Yeah.
You're not just adding two. You have to trade out.
Yeah. How about the Vols with that repeat, though?
Tennessee, at least according to DraftKings, the best odds to make the College World Series again this season. They open up with Hofstra here in a couple of days. Today's Wednesday. So on Friday, we are getting closer to baseball season. We have 1 minute to go. Let's get Steve's call in before the hour ends. Braden Gall joins us at 2 o'clock. Hey, Steve, short on time, but I wanted to work you in. Thanks for calling.
Yes, I'd like to comment on the Swain's thing. I think they ought to go back to Roman days where they had to come in and on bent knee with butt exposed, and apologized to Chris Loftus.
Steve's, I think, more bothered than you, Swain, which is hard to top.
Hold on, Steve. Say it one more time, because I know I ain't heard what I thought I heard.
Yes, sir, you did.
Oh,
Yeah, they ought to go back to Roman days where they had to just bent knees and apologize to him.
all right. That's on the table too, Steve. That's on the table.
Yeah.
We'll put that on the table. That's
Hey,
an
if you're
option.
if you're sorry, you got to let him know. Hey, Steve, we appreciate the call. We'll talk to Braden Gall. We'll talk some Tennessee, SEC, and college football next here on Josh and Swain. One more hour to go on both 99.1 The Sports Animal and AM 640 The Sports Monster in the Tri-Cities area, alongside VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain. I am Josh Ward, and we get to go to the Stanley Fencing and Gates Hotline to say hello to Braden Gall with 440 Sports, Athlon Sports, and we're here in the still early stages, I guess, of the college football offseason, Braden, but it is a sport now that is a 12-month out of the year topic. Right now, the House settlement and what is happening next in major college athletics is a big part of the conversation. What is most interesting to you right now about what's being discussed with the House settlement and the Power Four conference involvement and leadership that will handle whatever they do? What's most interesting to you right now about all of it?
So I don't like the House settlement itself. Like, unless you're a lawyer, there's going to be lots of stuff that comes out afterward. Of course, it's deliciously ironic that it's going to be announced on the morning of the national championship game, I believe April 7th, which is just hilarious to me, just as a human being, observationally. It's interesting and it's important and it matters, and athletic departments are planning on that extra $20, $25, $30 million to have in their budget to make sure they're paying players. But like, honestly, like, it's impossible to really sift through all the potential litigation, Title IX or otherwise, that could come out of that. So it's interesting, it's important, but it's really hard to sort of track and follow. You need a law degree to do it. I find the structural changes coming to our sport to be far more interesting on like an actual game or conference or scheduling or format level, because I think we're in a lame duck year right now. I don't think a lot of changes are going to come to the playoff format. And with the ACC television contract, if the negotiation between the ACC, ESPN, and the distribution of revenue to the ACC, do they put in that new negotiation a reduction in cost, a buyout, if it will, if you're thinking NFL contracts, for the big power programs in the ACC in 2030? Because if they do that, then we have a pretty clear line in the sand of when there's going to be another round of expansion and conferences are going to be changed again, and that we're probably going to get some breakaway. Like that's ultimately the most interesting, is where does our sport land? And I think we're still like 5 or 6 years away from that landing. But I do think that if the language in the ACC revenue distribution negotiation and contract gives Florida State and Clemson and Miami and North Carolina the most important to the SEC, if all of those schools have an out in the grant of rights at the end of the 2030 season, which is the rumor, if that happens, then you can imagine that everyone's going to be negotiating and buying themselves out by 2031, which is the year that the SEC and the Big Ten television contracts are also up for negotiation. So all of it works towards that 1 year, and that's what's really interesting to me. What does our format look like? What does the playoff look like? How many teams are getting in? I think it's going to go to 14. I think there's going to be one bye to keep the value on the SEC and the Big Ten championship game, one bye for each half of the bracket, like the NFL model. I don't think the SEC and the Big Ten are going to take 4 automatic bids, because then they got antitrust concerns that could open themselves up from a legal standpoint. I really do think it's the format of the sport, and you can go a lot of different directions with that. You can go conference realignment, you can go playoff, you can go, are we going to get a commissioner, which I think we will. All that stuff is probably going to happen in the next 3 to 6 years. And what does that look like? How does it all land? How does it work itself out? And like, what kind of sport am I going to be watching for the next 40 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think we see a playoff format after this upcoming season? So we'll do one more year of a 12-team playoff and then move to 14 by 2026. You think that part is that soon, or what do you think?
That would be my guess. And I think the way to keep the SEC and the AC and the Big Ten happy is to go to 14. Remember the vote this year, if they were going to make any changes, I think probably like about now, it has to be unanimous. Well, this time next year, it does not have to be. And so I think that's the key, is you're going to see a lot of changes after this upcoming football season. You're going to see a lot of changes to the bowl structure, to the playoff structure, to the seeding formats. And I think that's going to be one big change that will happen in 2026. So not this upcoming, but the following. And then I think we're going to have like 4 years of stability, and then we're going to have a major shakeup after that again. And so I'm just sort of ready for it to get to wherever it's going to go. And what does that look like? I can guess. I can have things that I want to see as a fan, but right now it's hard to tell specifically what's going to happen.
What's going to happen with your Tennessee Titans? Do you think bringing in Aaron Rodgers is a good idea?
I don't think, unless I'm missing news in the last few hours, Aaron Rodgers, while I believe that Aaron Rodgers might actually be one of the better options, especially if all it costs you is some cash, and then I think you could do a lot worse than him. You could also do a lot better, but I don't think Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or anyone else in this draft are better. Matt Stafford would be better, but are you going to go all in to get a quarterback in his 16th season? Is Kirk Cousins better? Is Russell Wilson better? I don't know. These are all average to below average options and don't give you a chance to compete, which, fans don't want to hear this, but I don't think that's I think expectations should be to be better next year, but I don't think they will be better next year unless they can trade out of one and acquire 4 or 5 extra picks and just stockpile talent between rounds 2 and 4 and just overhaul the roster in one offseason. It still doesn't answer your quarterback question, but at that point, maybe Aaron Rodgers makes more sense because he's got a better offensive line, he's got better receivers, he's got a better defense. Maybe it makes more sense at that point. But right now, the way that roster is built and the number of draft picks they have, it's hard to see them being much better.
Yeah, but Braden Gall is with us, 440 Sports. A lot of it has to come back to what is your goal? I can't imagine the realistic goal. I'm not talking about Brian Callahan and the players when they go on the field. They're going to try to win. But the organization can't realistically be thinking, hey, 2025 is a big year for us on the field. It's more about what they're doing right now and over the next 12 months to progress toward a chance to win in the future, right?
I mean, that's how it's hard to see it any other way. And the conversations from Chad Brinker and Mike Morganzi, essentially like the co-general managers, they have been preaching patience. They have been preaching specifics about draft picks and having enough capital to do X, Y, and Z. They want 30 picks over 3 years. They want 12 top 100 picks. Well, right now they have 7 top 100 picks over the next 3 years. They have 23 picks, not 30. How are you going to go about fixing that problem? Well, you got to trade things, whether that's the number 1 overall pick, whether that's Jeffrey Simmons. Outside of that, they don't have other ways to acquire talent. And so I just think they have too much. To your point, yes, I completely agree that the coach and the players, I don't think tanking actually happens in the NFL. I think it's maybe you'll cut a guy or trade a guy, or maybe you'll do things that are smart and your roster gets worse, and then maybe you don't win because of it. But the players who are out there, they're trying to put good tape out there. Players don't just look at teams that had the number 1 pick. The Giants had the number 1 pick and they won 2 games. And then I think the Patriots had the number 1 pick and then they won a game. The Raiders could have had the number 1 pick and they won a game. These players are still trying. So you can't tank for Arch Manning or whatever, or Drew Aller or whoever you think might be the best next year, all of whom I think are better than Cam Ward. But what's the answer after that? What happens if you're picking 3rd next year or 5th next year and you're marginally better? Sure, your roster might be better, but you still haven't solved the number 1 biggest problem, which is how do you find a quarterback? And so, is the following draft class the one that's going to be loaded and everyone's going to find their next superstar? How do you project that out this far in advance? It's impossible.
Yeah, the players may not tank, but management tanks by putting together teams that don't have a lot of talent, knowing that they're going to lose. So, yeah, it's hard. Players don't tank, man. They're trying to keep their job or get the next job.
Yeah. Especially on those types of teams where probably 10 to 15 to 20 players are going to be on a different team. And so they're trying to earn a spot on a roster somewhere in camp next year. So they definitely are trying. There's no question about that. I do think when you are the Titans, for example, and the general manager and the front office traded DeAndre Hopkins, who, by the way, is largely washed up, a great player, but largely, not what he used to be. You went and got a draft pick for him. You traded Ernest Jones, who you went and got from the Rams in the preseason on a whim because they were trying to get rid of him. Mm-hmm. You went and traded for him, and then you traded and got a better pick out of the deal by getting rid of him to go to Seattle. You don't trade away one of your best defensive players in the middle of the year if you're trying to compete for a championship. No, you're trying to stockpile assets for the offseason, which is the right thing to do. for this Titans organization. They have too many holes. They need better players at too many positions. And if you can trade from 1 down to 7, or then trade twice from like 1 to 3 and then from 3 to 12 or something, you might end up with 5 top 100 picks this year. And that can change your roster. That can turn around a team real fast. The last time the Titans had the number 1 pick was 2016, excuse me. They traded down. The very next year, they won 9 games, and it was the greatest turnaround in the history of the organization. So we even have evidence of it here in Nashville.
Braden, you're there in Nashville covering all different sports. What's going on at 440 Sports for people to check out?
We're going to be live today, SEC Football Live. We're going to cover the Athlon Sports way too early, preseason, off-season, top 25. We're going to look at all 16 teams in the SEC. We're going to tell you where they're ranked according to the rankings. We're going to talk through their challenges, some of the things we like about them. And so if you're a fan of a team in the SEC, tune in 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central on the 440 Sports YouTube page, Twitter account, and Facebook page. And then, of course, it'll be live up on the podcast app of choice coming up later today. So SEC Football Live, make sure you check that out. And then we've got all your Preds coverage, all of your Titans coverage, all of your at Nashville SC coverage. We got everything here in town. Soon to have some WNBA coverage coming soon. So
that is the plan. The Titans are on the clock. The SEC conversation never stops. 440 Sports. Search, download, subscribe. Hey, Braden, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yep, always a pleasure.
Braden Gall joining us, as all guests do, on the Stanley Fencing and Gates Hotline. We will come back, 865-656-9900, if you would like to be a part of the conversation. We still have an attaboy to hand out this hour. We'll talk more Tennessee basketball after the way last night's game went, with just a few weeks to go here in the regular season. And look for your thoughts after last night as well. 865-656-9900 to share with us here on Josh and Swain. Welcome back into Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. Hope you're having a great day. Rain has continued to fall in East Tennessee. It was raining threes for Kentucky last night, not as much for Tennessee. Swain, that has been a lot of our conversation here on today's show.
Yeah, it was disappointing. Watching us not take advantage of key players for Kentucky being out, having the lead late in the second half, only to make some mental mistakes defensively and allow them to win the game. I mean, just really disappointing. Missed an opportunity for sure.
We had this text. This kind of goes back to, I would say, the last couple segments. Some of our conversation with Braden Gall, but also 2 segments ago, we were talking about eligibility rules, where they stand. The latest is Tennessee's transfer. Alberto Osuna is suing the NCAA, citing the Diego Pavia ruling, which is based on junior college eligibility not counting. So junior college experience not counting against eligibility, probably the better way of saying it. Dustin in Knoxville texted this in. Swain, tell me what you think. Said, I have a lot of opinions on college sports nowadays, but I believe we're not doing any favors for the student athletes or the fans of the sport by never telling the kids no and giving them ridiculous amounts of money. I think it's making for a softer, more entitled athlete and person all around. It started with trophies for all. It's gotten worse. Where will it finally stop? It has gone from, I don't know, in the last 10 to 20 years, athletes seeming to not get any kind of power at all in the conversation to having a whole lot of power. And it seems like if the NCAA is going to take on an athlete, the NCAA stands no chance in the end when they go to court. But anything stand out there about what Dustin had to say, or in general with the thoughts of where things stand in terms of rule changes and opportunities, entitlement, if you want to call it that, in some cases, for athletes in college sports today?
I mean, he's right. He's right. I mean, athletes certainly deserve more power, and they have the right to make as much money as they possibly can. Their value is tied to whether or not somebody's willing to pay them that money. If someone's willing to pay it to them, then certainly they should get it and try to get it. But it is creating more entitlement. They are being told no less now than ever before. I mean, as much as I wanted Boo Carter to play on offense, coming in and should have been playing on offense, I mean, for a player to be like, yo, I want to play offense or I'm leaving. And then school's like, okay. Like, we just never really had that before. Before it was like, no. Like, we're playing you where we playing you. And that's the end of it. So, yeah, like, coaches have to coach differently. Players here know less and less now than ever before. And I mean, it's just important to make sure that you have the right people around these players to understand what the main thing is. And although you could take advantage of the system, it's not good for you to. The most important thing is you improving each and every day and being the best teammate you can be and trying to win games. And yeah, you'll get some money, cool, but don't let that cloud what's really important. Don't let that change who you are for the worst.
Yeah, it's kind of a test. This doesn't mean that today's college athletes aren't showing up and working hard and doing what they can to be their best, but it is a completely different environment, and it's going to affect every athlete differently, and some are going to be entitled and not handle it the right way. Others will take advantage of it and be very smart about it. We try on this show to tell people about athletes who have NIL opportunities, using that to create charitable opportunities, to create foundations, to give back. So there is a countless number of stories of athletes using their opportunities for good. That happens with Tennessee athletes. That happens all across the country. That's very important to keep in mind as well. But there are negatives that have come with it too.
Yeah, and let's not just pick on the athlete here. It's the parents.
That's a big part.
The parents have become as big of a problem, if not worse, than the athlete. because the athletes are getting things said to them. There's bugs put in their ears, put in their minds by the people around them who are adults. And so,
Yeah, that's why I think Dustin was pointing out we're not the quoted real adults in the room, those that are supposed to be
Yeah,
leading,
yeah.
not doing the athletes any favors a lot of the
correct.
time.
And adults in the room mean decision makers, people that have the power or had the power to prevent us from being where we are and have the power to fix some of the things that we're dealing with now. And also the adults in the room that are around these student athletes, the family members, agents, coaches. I mean, the adults are messing this thing up. And, unfortunately, the athletes are being blamed for, all the issues that the adults are creating too.
All this being said, I stand by my ultimate goal, and that is to get you one more year of eligibility and to get you out there on the court. We had a question. Can Chris Lofton, can he get that 5th year and come back and play? That could be the answer, Swain, to a little more consistency behind the 3-point line.
Man, Chris Lofton's done playing. I saw Chris play in that basketball tournament a couple years ago.
Yeah, the TBT, that wasn't.
He's done.
That was what Tennessee fans wanted to see.
Yeah, he's done. He's done. But hey, Lamonte Turner's not done.
I was about to say we got some other names that we can toss out there.
Jordan Bowden, guys who are not playing in the NBA that are currently playing. I mean, those guys can help us right now.
In soccer they use the term loan. You can have an athlete on loan while they're getting things worked out between the Hornets and the Lakers. Maybe Dalton Connect could be on loan back to the Vols here for the postseason. What do you think?
Dude, I'm all for that. Sign me up. Where's the collection plate? I'll drop a couple dollars in that one.
Yeah, a lot of fans would. I think the volunteer club would have some entries if that meant getting Dalton back on the roster for a few weeks.
Yeah, you already know, man. Sign me up for Dalton Connect. But, yeah, I mean, hopefully some of the new developments can help us move forward to, I won't say a solution, but something that's better than what we have right now. So the house settlement, the decision to kind of move forward with that, hopefully that happens, because, man, it is out of control right now. To pay the players, but let's get some rules in place. Let's get some guardrails. Let's get some rules that everybody can abide by that's playing football or playing sports in college.
Maybe ESPN needs to, at least short term, create a spin-off channel, CSPN. Just cover the court cases, everything that's going on, the different cases that take place in sports, especially in college right now.
Yeah.
CSPN. I think it would get some viewership.
Yeah, bring in Judge Judy,
Yeah.
Joe Brown. Man, bring in all the celebrity judges, man. Let them commentate on the court rulings. That'd be great.
Yeah. The Courts and Sports Programming Network. I think it's got a ring to it.
Yeah, you bring in Judge Joe Brown, man. You mean to tell me that a player's getting paid $500,000 and only had 37 yards rushing for the whole entire season? Man, sit down somewhere. That'd be great.
You don't think Stephen A. could provide some commentary on some of these topics?
Yeah, but he's not a celebrity judge. And he's Judge Judy, Joe Brown, and them.
Yeah, I think Stephen A. would be more on the attorney side.
Well, Steve Harvey, he was doing a little bit of that too, the celebrity judging. Bring him in there. I think that'd be good TV.
Lot of things we could figure out. So CSPN, that is my new idea, at least for the upcoming months, because we're far from done with these court cases. We'll come back. We have 30 minutes to go until we're done with today's show. We continue on 99.1 The Sports Animal and AM 640 The Sports Monster. Big milestone last night in the sports world. We'll hand out an attaboy coming up. Continue to invite you to join us as well. 865-656-9900 to be a part of Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us at Josh and Swain on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We appreciate you hanging out with us today as we've had a lot of Tennessee and SEC basketball conversation. Appreciate our guests who joined us. You can go back and listen to our chat with David Cobb of CBS Sports. He joined us in the second hour at 1:15. At the start of this hour, we talked to Braden Gall of 440 Sports. Listen to us on demand anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, the WNML app, thanks to Beatty Chevrolet. 865-656-9900 if you would like to be part of the show. You can call or text in. Same option. Same number for either option, 865-656-9900. As right now, we hand out today's attaboy.
I just wanted to come by and congratulate you on the great work you've been doing.
I like your style. You remind me of a young me.
Failure is not an option.
That boy is good.
Always remind yourself, nobody built like you. You design yourself.
Attaboy.
We hand out attaboys and attagirls every day thanks to Native Design. NativeTN.com is the website for Native Design, your local custom pool and hardscape specialist. Swain, how about Kevin Durant? He joined the 30,000-point club last night. He became the 8th player in NBA history to hit the 30,000-point mark. He joined LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Dirk Nowitzki, and Wilt Chamberlain in the 30,000-point club. Kevin Durant, of course, a former player of Rick Barnes at Texas, and he is one of the great all-time scorers in the game of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, lethal. I mean, we're talking about someone that's 6'10", 6'11", can handle the ball like a guard, can shoot like a guard, can score at all three levels. I mean, just one of the most complete scorers that we've seen ever in the history of basketball, period. And to see him bounce back from the Achilles tear that he had a couple of years ago, for some guys, they're unable to bounce back and continue their career. Think about some of the microfracture surgeries that players had with their knees, and Tracy McGrady's, and the injuries like the ankle injury with Grant Hill, and he was supposed to be the next great one, but injuries slowed him down. Penny Hardaway, for Kevin Durant to go through that injury and then continue to play at a high level and break this record or break this threshold of points, man, it's remarkable, man. It's really impressive.
He's 36 years old. Durant was recently selected to his 15th All-Star team, and he is still shooting and scoring at a very high level. He's averaging 27.1 points per game this season. He's shooting nearly 53% from the field. So he's 36. He's gone through the injury issues you mentioned, and he is still at a high level. Hope he keeps going for several more years. So congratulations and an attaboy to Kevin Durant, becoming the 8th player in NBA history to reach 30,000 career points. We hand out attaboys and attagirls every day thanks to Native Design. It is your local custom pool and hardscape specialist at Native Design for 20 years now. They've been transforming outdoor spaces into breathtaking retreats where families gather, friends connect, and memories are made. Native Design turns ordinary yards into exceptional escapes. Call 865-310-3256 or visit the website nativetn.com. Speaking of the NBA, Swain, we'll see tonight what happens with the Lakers and the Jazz as Dalton Connect watches on. He did not dress 2 nights ago, expected to tonight. I don't know if there's been an update on his playing status for the game today. I'll see if I can research that. They're, of course, a few hours behind us on the West Coast, but they're playing in Salt Lake City tonight against Utah ahead of the All-Star break. So be monitoring there to see what happens with Dalton. Luka Doncic just 6 minutes ago, in fact, was upgraded to probable for tonight's game because this past game was his first back from a left calf strain. He is on a minutes restriction, and they have the All-Star break. But the Lakers signed Alex Len, a center, yesterday. They're trying to get the roster in order, and Dalton Connect will be a part of that roster for the rest of the season.
Just some really weird behavior that we have going on in society, man. Like, there's a video floating on social media of Dalton Connect during a timeout, and he's obviously not in his dressed out. He's in street clothes, and they show him, and like he's not talking to anyone. No one's talking to him, and they're trying to make it seem like that like Dalton has a problem. Rui Hachimura is right next to him. He's not talking to anybody. No one's talking to him. He's dressed out. Rudy is dressed out, and they're trying to make it seem like, oh man, Dalton is not, he's not bought in. They just tried to trade him. He's a rookie. He
What do
is
you want
a
him to be doing?
rookie that just tried to be traded, went to Charlotte, came all the way back to LA. How is he supposed to feel? Like, he's supposed to be excited? Sitting there with spirit fingers? No, he's supposed to feel the way he's feeling. He hasn't said anything. He hasn't done anything wrong. All he's done is just sit there. And folks are trying to video him just standing there and make it seem like he's doing something wrong. He's not doing anything wrong.
I'm with you. I saw a couple different videos. One on the bench, one as they're standing around, and the idiotic comments that with him. I thought the dodo bird was extinct a long time ago. No, they're floating out there on the internet. Whole bunch of dodo birds. We got to make something out of everything.
Josh, you've been hanging out with 2 and 3 year olds a lot. What the hell is a dodo bird?
Well, first of all, yes, I have been hanging out with 2 and 3 year olds.
Dodo, what?
Dodo bird. The flightless bird.
But yeah, you're right though. I agree with you. Like, hey, don't come for Dalton, man. Don't come for Dalton. Like, if Dalton did something that was worth criticizing, I would fall back and I would say, yeah, you're right. Like when Grant was out here taking cheap shots when he was healthy, and people were ripping on Grant Williams, I was like, well, Grant was out of bounds there. Like,
He hit himself in a couple of cases.
yeah, but like, come on, man. We're not doing this, man. You just find odd, weird angles to try to tear down people. Like, it's so annoying to me.
Yep. Remember the Leave Britney Alone video? This is years ago. This is before we had too much. But Leave Britney Spears alone. That I would like to remake it. Leave Dalton alone.
Yeah, leave Dalton.
Leave him alone.
Yeah.
Let him hoop. Just let him hoop.
He's a rookie that just got traded, and then the trade was rescinded. This is his first time ever experiencing this.
He's got to be exhausted too. He's flying coast to coast.
Yeah.
All right. We need more love out there. That's what we need. We're a couple days away. Valentine's Day. Here's a little help. Flourish Flowers, the next caller to 656 wins a $25 gift card to Flourish Flowers. They want to help you for Valentine's Day on Friday or any special occasions. Flourish Flowers on South North Shore Drive, 7685 South North Shore Drive. The address, the website, flourishflowersknox.com. Call 656 wins. The first person that does so will win a $25 gift card to Flourish Flowers. We come back for a final segment of Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. Swain, it's been an afternoon. We'll try again tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
It has been. I feel better about the game last night, but missed opportunity, and I understand that the players probably feel worse than me. They're the ones that played the game, put in time in the weight room, put in time in the film room to be the best that they could be. No one chooses to lose, but man, I was all in on Tennessee getting revenge, and a couple weeks ago made a joke about Tennessee breaking Kentucky. Well, Kentucky broke us.
Broke them again,
huh?
Tennessee's serious about breaking Kentucky.
Yeah, they definitely broke us, man. They swept the season series against us, and hey, we play other teams a whole lot better than we play Kentucky, man. Maybe Kentucky is our kryptonite.
Kentucky fans can be nasty online too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I would be afraid of playing Kentucky in the tournament, but they don't normally make it past the first round anyway, so we should be okay.
There you go. You still got a little bit there. Still got a little bit. It's a postseason sport. Don't forget, tomorrow we'll be out on Clinton Highway. We'll be out at the Bed Store. So, Swain, I think you're going to fly solo a little bit. I'm going to take a nap during a bit of the show tomorrow. I want to make sure we test out the product so we can let people know how it is. So look forward to that. We'll be out from 12 until 3 at the Clinton Highway location of the Bed Store.
No, you should do that. I think that's a good idea.
Hey, what do you want to do here? So in the power poll, in just a moment, you want to, how many you want to do? We can go with whatever. We're going to do games to watch in college hoops. It's an off night for Tennessee. Could use a Tennessee breather. So you have the SEC still in action. Bold prediction: the SEC will continue to be 500 in conference play after tonight's games, as that record is sweeping the nation. How many games do you want to do here?
Yeah, I was thinking 5, but then I was thinking 3 after looking at the slate tonight, and then I went from thinking 3 to 1 because this is a terrible slate of games, Josh. Like think about these games, like the top 25 matchups. All right,
yeah,
you got teams in the top 25. Excuse me, you got St. John's, who is a top 10 team, and boy, defensively they just like Tennessee. They're playing Villanova, who's 14-10. All right. Ole Miss on the road, they're playing South Carolina. That's 3 games below 500. They haven't won a game in the SEC. Duke, Cooper Flag. Oh, yeah, get to watch Cooper Flag. They're playing Cal. Cal is 500 at 12-12. All right, Texas Tech, cool. Arizona State, 12-11, 1 game over 500. And then Missouri, hey, they're fun to watch. But we just saw Oklahoma. They are a corpse right now. Like, who wants to watch Oklahoma play basketball? It's a rough slate of games, man. It's rough.
Well, you said Arizona State's 12-11. That's 1 game what? 1 game over 500.
That's not good.
And it's a negative. We could switch to the NBA. The Bulls looking for revenge. Last night they lost the Pistons by 40.
You know what?
So they're going to run it back and play.
It may not be bad to watch Duke and Cal then.
See, perspective is always required. Yeah. Let's hit it. Let's hit today's power poll.
Captain, we're losing power in the warp engine.
Nuclear power pants.
What's up? I'm Kenny Powers.
Don't know the power of the dark side.
I have the power!
Great power comes great responsibility.
Full power, Mr. Scott.
Halftime, it was 71-29 last night. 29 points in 2 quarters. It's 24 minutes.
The Bulls should move to Las Vegas.
Good to be a fan.
Like, when's the last time you've seen a major market team move? I don't think we've ever seen that.
I've got a buddy who lives there. He's a season ticket holder. You could ask the question why, but he said he's going to look into seeing if he can get some kind of refund on what he purchased. Good luck to him. All right. I'll do 3, whatever you want to do, Swain, that you're comfortable with in terms of college games to watch tonight.
What you got?
All right. I've got an honorable mention.
Oh, my gosh.
To Oklahoma at Missouri. I don't have a good feeling about Oklahoma moving forward. Let's see if they prove me wrong. It's at Missouri tonight, OU at Mizzou. Former Big 12 teams there. I've got Ole Miss at South Carolina, number 3. Winning at South Carolina has not necessarily been easy. Everyone's done it in the SEC, but not by a lot every time. I've got number 2, Xavier at Providence. Kim English, 2 proud basketball programs. Number 1's easy. That's St. John's at Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech beat Houston a couple days ago. Let's see how they play against Arizona State. I like St. John's and what they do defensively and the athletes that they have. So I put them at number 2. And then number 1 is Cooper Flag. Like I'm tuning in to watch Cooper Flag. And they play at home versus Cal, coming off the Clemson L a couple days ago.
That is a coveted basketball player at the next level.
Don't even think about it, Josh. Don't even think about it. The last place he needs to be is Chicago. So this tanking that y'all are doing or not doing, you never really can tell with the Bulls. It's not going to amount to anything. It's not going to be beneficial. He's not going to the Chicago Bulls.
That's the thing. They were trying last night at home against the Pistons. All right, that's the power poll to close out the show. We will be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Joel Silverberg producing for us today. Thank you, as always. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back tomorrow with a ton to discuss. We'll see you at 12 o'clock here on Josh and Swain.